And should we go behind this or not? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Yeah, okay.
I think we just.
I think we're all right.
Yeah.
Oh, you do?
I think it's fine.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you're.
Could we go to the side? Could we go to the side, like over there?
Bluetooth pairing.
That wasn't me. Yes. Sound check, sound check. I know you asked me to speak louder. I will be. Is that good? Okay.
Go.
Okay. Thank you for joining us today, both those who are here in person and those who are joining us in the live stream. I'm Jeanette Senecal, the Senior Director of Mission Impact at the League of Women Voters of the United States. As a longtime DC resident and the mother of 2 children who go to the DC public schools, I've experienced firsthand how our daily lives are impacted by the lack of full representation in Congress. And I've shared our story, the story of DC residents, with people all across the country. And when they hear about our plight, they're really surprised to know that taxation without representation still exists 220 years after they thought we stomped it out of this country. We are here today to appreciate all the tremendous support we have received from petitioners from every state across the Union, DC, and several territories. Representatives from the League of Women Voters of the District of Columbia, DC Vote, and the ACLU of DC will present reports of their petition drives to our DC statehood champions in the House and Senate, Congresswoman Holmes Norton and Senator Tom Carper. Our 3 organizations have gathered over 36,000 petition signatures, each of which represents a person who took the time to learn about DC struggles for full rights and signed a petition to support and expand our democracy. Support for DC statehood runs deep, especially at the League. The League of Women Voters of the United States has supported DC statehood for over 80 years, and we continue to support it with total commitment today. The League of Women Voters of DC was formed in the same year and as a national organization, making it 101 years old this year. Back when they formed, they called themselves the Voteless League of Women Voters. Unfortunately, that is a name they can still claim today. But voteless does not mean powerless, and it does not mean actionless. The DC League and its partners at the DC Statehood Coalition have worked tirelessly in partnership with congressional leadership, including Congresswoman Norton and Senator Carper, to keep the issue of statehood at the forefront of American minds. As a nationwide organization, the League of Women Voters of the United States has tapped our network in all 50 states to raise the issue of statehood for DC residents across the country. Representatives from the DC League visited over 30 states in the last 2 years alone to make public presentations on the importance of this issue. I am extremely proud of their efforts, and those efforts have contributed to the boxes of signatures you see here today. The League of Women Voters fights for DC statehood because we fight for democracy that truly represents all Americans. The District of Columbia is home to over 700,000 people, and yet those residents do not have full voting members representing them in the U.S. House and Senate. These Americans are denied a voice in Congress, unable to advocate for or against federal policies that affect their lives. This is not a representative democracy. DC residents cannot govern their district without federal intervention in their local priorities. We're talking about fair COVID relief, the ability to enforce their own laws, and even the ability to call the National Guard for protection. This is not a representative democracy. The residents of the district are subject to taxation without representation. They pay more per capita in federal taxes than any of the 50 states, yet their federal government can ignore their priorities and needs while collecting their money. This is not a representative democracy. DC statehood is not a partisan issue, but a civil rights issue, which cannot be separated from the fight for racial justice. DC is a jurisdiction which is a majority population of Black and brown people, and continued efforts to block full representation for DC is racial discrimination. This is surely not a representative democracy. The residents of DC are residents of this country, and they deserve the full rights of representation in local governance. Congress must rectify this 220-year injustice and grant statehood to the residents of DC. The League, DC Vote, and ACLU are heartened to report to our congressional champions today that our efforts to educate Americans all over the country about the need for statehood has created an influx of support. Americans across the nation know the Union is not complete without the residents of DC. It's time to admit the Washington-Douglas Commonwealth into the Union with full rights. And now I'd like to introduce our three extraordinary leaders and champions for DC statehood who will provide some context and talk about the results of each organization's petition drive. Monica Hopkins is the Executive Director of ACLU of the District of Columbia. Since 2014, Monica's leadership has expanded the organization's strength, reach, and capacity to defend and advance the civil rights and civil liberties for the 700,000 residents of the District of Columbia. Patrice Snow is the Director of Communications at DC Vote, an expert on political and policy communications at the intersection of economics, racial justice, and gender. Patricia's work at DC Vote currently focuses on identifying and promoting opportunities to advance the cause for DC statehood for Washington, D.C.'s 700,000 disenfranchised residents. Ann Anderson, the chair of the DC League of Women Voters Committee for Full Rights for DC Citizens. Ann has been advocating for DC statehood since 1971. That's 50 years. And with the League, she has trained hundreds of speakers and presented to tens of thousands of people traveling across the country to bring the message of DC statehood to Americans in all 50 states. Please welcome these three DC statehood champions. Monica, we'll welcome you.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. I am here today representing the thousands of ACLU members from all 50 states who proudly added their names to the fight for full and equal rights for the 700,000 residents of DC. Thousands of people signed petitions. In addition, has included Congress repeatedly vetoing many important DC laws causing harm to our public health and safety. Because DC is not a state, it doesn't have control over its own, the 700,000 people who live in the district. And the history is clear. The denial of statehood to DC residents is rooted in racism. In 1867, right after the Civil War, President Andrew Johnson vetoed a bill that would grant citizens of the district, including black men, the right to vote. Congress overrode the veto, briefly granting notable and historic political influence to black Washingtonians. But just as black voters started to exercise their political power in DC, Congress quickly replaced DC's local government with federally appointed commissioners, blocking heavily black region from having full voting rights or control over its own local government. Congress's goal was clear: to disempower an increasingly politically active black community. The campaign for DC statehood in this way intersects with all of the ACLU of the District of Columbia's issues, with all ACLU members' issues that they care about, and is a central priority to achieving equal rights for DC's residents and for our country. We will work alongside our great partners and the inspiring individuals who have led this fight for generations to urge the Senate to pass S-51, granting DC statehood, because it is a constitutional path to fully enfranchise the hundreds of thousands of Americans in DC and to right this 200-year wrong. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Patrice Snow, the Communications Director for DC Vote. And when I drive to Washington, D.C. from my home in Silver Spring, Maryland, for a half smoke at Ben's Chili Bowl or to listen to some jazz music on U Street, I inevitably always see that taxation without representation license plate. Yes. And it's so striking. It's striking because I know the deep historical implications of what it means. It's striking because it means that folks that look like me, like my mother, like my aunts, like my cousins, are still living in a not fully formed democracy that could be compared to one our collective ancestors lived with over 160 years ago. It's striking because our march toward a more perfect union hasn't quite reached its destination. It's striking because the lack of statehood for Washington, D.C. is a walking, talking symbol of the systemic racism last year's protests and marches were about. It's striking because the lack of representation for the over 700,000 residents that call Washington, D.C. home is such a blatant injustice. And it's not just an injustice for the citizens of the district, but for the over 300 million Americans who love freedom and democracy. Having no voice in Congress is just plain crummy. With all the things going on in the country today, the debate on infrastructure reform and police reform and child tax credits, the future of work, child care, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, it's a shame and a scandal that D.C. residents don't have 2 senators and a member of the House to call or write so they can have their voices heard. If I went to work every day and paid my taxes on time, no less, and I couldn't pick up my phone to call my senators to tell them what I thought about canceling student loan debt, I would be pretty upset. So, working in all states all across the country, DC Vote, a leading education and advocacy organization, where again I'm lucky enough to serve as the communications director, is today delivering 15,121 signatures to add to the petition demanding DC statehood. It's no longer a question of if statehood will happen for DC, but when. And with the over 30,000 signees of this petition today, we say now. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I am so pleased to be here. As Jeanette mentioned, I have been working on this for 50 years. And I am so pleased today to be representing the League of Women Voters, to present our evidence that Americans from every state of the Union and several territories have petitioned in favor of statehood. We've gathered 12,847 signatures to date. There's still another 100 that we couldn't get on this list. Through tabling at community events, petitions, online, and our postcard mailer outreach to friends and family across the nation. So I want to give a shout out to Congresswoman Norton. She's right out there, so maybe she can hear me. So her persistence, your strategic thinking, and occasionally fiery objection to congressional intrusion on our local affairs is legendary, and I salute you. And I'll be presenting a folder with information about our petition drive, along with a list of our DC citizens who have signed our petition. And Senator Carper is also here and will be appearing soon. We are well aware that you have stepped forward to right the injustices perpetrated upon the people of Washington, D.C. And we are deeply grateful for your principled and persistent work on our behalf. We prepared a folder as well for you that provides information about our petition drive and a list of your constituents who have signed our petition. We had intended to hand deliver the list of petition signatures to all the Senate offices, but given the pandemic times, we may very well be mailing them, and we have a sample here that are ready for the post office. That box there is full of the petitions. The League of Women Voters will continue to work for full rights for DC citizens, to end voter suppression of all sorts, and educate people everywhere on how to get to their polls and vote. This is what democracy is all about, and the 700,000 people of Washington, D.C. want to become full partners in our national endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Now I'd like to introduce Senator Carper, representing Delaware, the very first state to join the Union. He has been a principled and dedicated advocate for statehood for the people of District of Columbia. He has stated on more than one occasion that DC's lack of representation is just not fair, it's just not right. Thank you, Senator Carper, for your championship of DC statehood in the United States Senate, where we are closer than ever to achieving statehood. Please welcome Senator Carper.
All right. Thanks. Thanks. Please remain standing. This is a standing ovation for Eleanor Holmes Norton. How about another one for Ann? Ann with an E. My mother's sister's name is Ann, with an E. She went to her grave always telling us that she had no E. And on her gravestone, there's an E. So we could never trust her. Thank you for being here. You're an inspiration to all of us. Anybody here ever meet Joe Lieberman? Anybody here ever meet Joe Lieberman? Senator, Attorney General from Connecticut, Senator for many years, ran for Vice President a number of years ago. Still alive and kicking. He's up in New York City practicing law. Still married to Hadassah. Got a bunch of kids and grandchildren now. When he left the Senate a number of years ago, he said to me, we're both on the Homeland Security Committee in the Senate, and he had urged me to join that committee when I was first elected in 2000. And gosh, about 12 years later, he graduated and left the Senate. When he left, just before he left the Senate, he said, I want to ask a favor of you. I said, what is it? And he said, I want to ask a favor of you. And I said, well, what is it? And he said, I want to pass the torch to you. And I said, for what? For what cause? And he said, DC statehood. And I said, really? And he said, I've been the sponsor of this for a number of years. We need somebody like, he said, like me, who's not a particularly partisan person, not looking to stack the deck in the Senate or the House. He said we need somebody like Joe who can speak as to what is the right thing to do. And he said the status quo is just wrong. He said it's wrong. And we need to do something about that. And you, he said, you, Tom, should take this torch and carry it. This past Sunday, my wife and I were in church. Joe's Jewish, very deep faith. My wife and I are Protestant, also deep faith. And it's in church on Sunday, our pastor read from Deuteronomy. And in the Deuteronomy, the words of Moses, who said, love thy neighbor as thyself. In Deuteronomy, Moses. Fast forward in the New Testament, the very same words. Love thy neighbor as thyself. So if we truly follow those urgings, how do we rationalize the way that the residents of the District of Columbia are treated and have been treated for a long, long time? Doesn't make sense. It violates literally the most important rule in the Scripture, one of the two most important rules in the Scripture, to love thy neighbor as thyself. If you love your neighbor as yourself, you got a place like this, they have judges here in Washington, D.C. We have judges in all 50 states. The Congress doesn't tell the other 50 states who can be a judge and who cannot. For the District of Columbia, basically the Congress gets the last call. And it would be one thing if the Congress, when there's a vacancy, I say this as an old recovering governor, nominate a lot of judges. The one thing, if the Congress would act in a reasonable way at a reasonable time to confirm judges, but it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. We, when the most recent nominee, I think waited. I think we had a vacancy for. Correct me if I'm wrong, sorry, 13 months. 13 months, I think. If that's not right, what is right? Say it.
On average, it's a 13-month wait.
On average, you have to wait over a year for a vacancy to exist. The longest wait was how long?
38 months.
38 months. That's over 3 years. Can you imagine my state having to say, well, we would love to have the courts, fully, occupied and providing justice and making sure that the laws are enforced. But we have to wait 3 years on the Congress to actually name somebody to fill this vacancy. How would we like? We wouldn't like that. Love thy neighbor as thyself. How about taxes? How about taxes? We pay taxes in Delaware. We pay taxes in all 50 states. We have 39,000 or so signatures, or people who signed on to lend their voice to this cause. The other 50 states, they pay federal taxes. Who pays the high on a per capita basis? Who pays the most? The District of Columbia. Love thy neighbor as thyself. They have a National Guard here. We have a National Guard in Delaware. I was for 8 years a Commander-in-Chief of the National Guard in Delaware. Love the National Guard. We have a National Guard here. When we had an emergency in Delaware, or ice storm, snowstorm, drought, to whatever it might be, I could activate the National Guard. Here, can the mayor do that? No, mayor cannot. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Those are just three. Those are just three things. And when Joe Lieberman says the right thing to do is to say, District of Columbia, you're our neighbor, we're going to treat you like we'd like to be treated, and we'll love you like we love ourselves. Last thing I'd say is this. Delaware ratified the Constitution on December 7th, 1787. About 11 years before that, a guy named Caesar Rodney rode his horse. Like Thomas Jefferson, Caesar Rodney was a slave owner. Caesar Rodney was one of the first governors. They call them presidents back then. But Caesar Rodney rode his horse from Dover, Delaware, to Philadelphia to cast a tie-breaking vote in favor of the Declaration of Independence, written by Thomas Jefferson. And the lines that we most remember are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The idea that the way we treat the District of Columbia, and compared to those words, is it consistent with those words? No, it isn't. It violates them to the core. And 11 years after Caesar Rodney rode his horse to Philadelphia to cast a tie-breaking vote for the Declaration, 11 years later, Delaware became the first state to ratify the Constitution. December 7th, 1787, unanimously, 25 to zip in Dover, Delaware, at the Golden Fleece Tavern. Golden Fleece Tavern. The Constitution starts off with these words. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. It doesn't say in order to form a perfect union, does it? It says a more perfect union. The idea as we go forward, we'll get better. We'll be fairer. For a long time, slaves couldn't vote. A lot of people of color couldn't vote. Until about 100 years ago, women couldn't vote or run for office. But over time, we've made improvements. We've made improvements. And there's work still to be done. I just want to say to everybody who's lent their voice, to Eleanor and others who provided the leadership, to the mayor, others who provided leadership, Joe Lieberman, and so many other people who said, we're going to love our neighbor as ourselves. We're going to treat other people the way we want to be treated. We're not going to look with a blind eye toward mistreatment, unfairness. That's why we're here. God bless you all for joining this cause. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Carper. Now it's my pleasure to introduce a woman who probably needs no introduction for this group here today, but Congresswoman Norton is the passionate, untiring delegate for Washington, D.C. to the U.S. House of Representatives. Her strong voice and keen strategic actions have kept D.C. moving forward towards full democracy, and just this year, the House passed the Washington, D.C. Admission Act for the second time in U.S. history. Thank you, Delegate Norton. And that was in no small part to Delegate Norton's efforts. We are so pleased that she is here with us today to accept the signature reports. Welcome, Congresswoman Norton.
When I look at all these boxes of petitions with the names of the states who enjoy all the blessings of statehood, I couldn't say enough. And I will name you in a moment about how important what you're doing today is. I do want to say thank you to Senator Carper before he has to go back to the Senate. Senator Carper has been an extraordinary Senate partner. Look what he's done. Witness that we have had a hearing in the Senate. That is the step up. The next step is to go to the floor and to become the 51st state of the United States. So I thank our good friend, Senator Carper, for the leadership he has given on this bill. And I can't offer enough thanks to the organizations who have gathered these petitions. When I see those boxes with those names, Delaware was right behind Senator Carper. I can't thank the League of Women Voters, the ACLU, DC Vote, enough for what you have done to gather these signatures from all 50 states. Witness their names on the boxes. Your efforts right now are particularly essential to keep DC statehood front and center with so much else going on in the Congress today. Remember what the district is trying to do. We're trying to do what no other state has done. The states have gotten statehood 2 at a time. That's how it's always been done. One Democratic, one Republican. The district does not have a partner. So we are trying to do this on our own, and we are having some success. Witness that in a very detailed recent poll, 54% of the American people now support statehood for the District of Columbia. That is all because of the unfailing, steadfast efforts of groups like the League of Women Voters, DC Vote, the ACLU, those who helped to collect these signatures, keeping this issue going in the states. We have been insufficient in the House because the district does not have 2 senators. And as long as we don't have 2 senators and a voting member of Congress, I get to vote in everything, including being a subcommittee chair. I just can't vote when that final vote comes in the House. As soon as we get that
And as soon as we no longer have Republicans interfering with the business of the district, then we will be on our way to statehood. You heard Senator speak about the district paying the highest federal taxes per capita. I believe that it is clear that the district not only deserves statehood, the district has earned its way to become the 51st state of the United States. Thank you for all you're doing here today.
Thank you to Congresswoman Norton. Over the last 5 years, the DC Mayor's Office has been a major champion for statehood for the people of DC. With her leadership, district residents have been able to express our desire to join the United States of America as the 51st state of Douglas Commonwealth. The DC government has also provided vital funds to nonprofits to help educate people across the country about DC statehood. We are so pleased that Mayor Bowser's senior advisor, Ms. Beverly Perry, is able to join us here today and share some remarks from us. Thank you, Ms. Perry.
Thank you. And I apologize, the mayor could not make it today. Good morning, I'm Beverly Perry. As you heard, I'm senior advisor to the mayor. And I am so delighted to be here with our heroes on the Hill, Senator Carper from Delaware, and our warrior, Congresswoman Holmes Norton. Let's give them another round of applause. I'm also proud to be here with local leaders and national leaders, especially the League of Women Voters, DC Vote, the ACLU. The League has been fighting for equity and justice for over 100 years, and we in DC are so proud that you took DC statehood on as one of your issues. Our presence here today, though, is timely. It is Petition Day. And if anybody asks you what is today, you tell them that it is Petition Delivery Day to the U.S. Senate. A solid majority of Americans, as you heard Mrs. Norton say, in a recent poll said that D.C. statehood should be a reality. Nationwide support is represented here as well. And the impact of these petitions should move the senators that are yet to express their support for DC statehood. These petitions convey what we already know in the District of Columbia, which is that disenfranchisement in the House and the Senate is an injustice that's been endured for way too long. It must be eliminated. I urge all of you here to talk to your senators and to share this sentiment of today. Again, on behalf of Mayor Bowser and the 700,000 residents of the District of Columbia, I want to thank the League, the ACLU, DC Vote, for educating America on our plight. And again, if anybody asks you what are we doing today, you tell them that this is Petition Delivery Day to the U.S. Senate. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I like that. It's Petition Delivery Day. So we want to really thank and give a special thanks to Senator Carper and Congresswoman Norton for their strong leadership in Congress as champions for DC statehood. We also want to thank Mayor Bowser and her office for their unwavering support and of our efforts to reach American public about this campaign and our cause. And thank all of you for attending and watching online. Thank you especially to the petition signers of the 37,000 people who have signed our petition to stand up for DC statehood. Your support in this fight is the reason we are here today for Petition Delivery Day. DC statehood is part of a larger effort to protect and expand voting rights. The Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Voting Advancement Act have another voting rights partner in the cause of the Washington, D.C. Admission Act. As many here have said multiple times today, we cannot call ourselves a democracy until all Americans have full representation in Congress and the full rights of citizenship. We want everyone to enjoy the same equal rights across this country. Thank you everyone for attending.
Oh, the quilt. Yeah.
So do we have?
There are two people here.
Alrighty. And I'm sure that we're looking for No, you're not okay. I'm just taking
Yes.
Oh yes, Patrice. Yeah.
I'm
Oh, you know, this is the first time I've met her too, but I've heard her voice. Yes, thank you. Oh, hi. Oh, Jean, Brian. Oh, I've been looking for you.
Yeah, I've been looking for you.
Okay.
Okay, I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, okay. So if I have to
Yes, here it is.
This is for Senator Cake. Yeah.
Yes, and Bo Chef, you know Bo?
Oh, I know. Hello. See him. Hello, Bo.
How are you?
Well, you two are going to be
Well,
We're going together.
we got to figure this out.
Yeah, we're going to figure it out. We still don't know how you guys are going to get into Senate office building. That's the plan.
Oh, that was a change how they're doing it.
That's the problem.
Yes, right.